at least I haven't had a chance to get in here, but I'm going to be here, well, obviously I'm here today, and then I'm coming back the 1st of December. So I'm going to be in the Thursday session on December 1st in case anybody cares about that. So Tristan asked me if I was going to do next Tuesday, but next Tuesday I'm actually celebrating surviving another trip around the sun. So I will not be in the office then. But I was hoping I'd be able to golf, but the weather's going to be nasty, so oh well. Anyway, all right, so a question came up. Who's the one who sent the Windows Server? Oh, hey, thanks. Who's the one who sent the Windows Server question? Oh, James, okay. Is he here?
Me. Yeah.
Okay, so let me I just got this email not too long ago and just looked at it. Okay, server is running Windows Server 2012 with the domain control role installed. Okay, I see that. The server is configured with 2 NICs, and the first configured with a dynamic address of 0.5 obtained from a router, the high-speed cable modem. Alrighty. Second, the server has a second NIC that is not configured but will need to support at least 50 clients. The server also runs the DHCP role but has not been properly configured. Okay, I could see that. The preferred DNS server and the gateway is blank. Internet is needed for all clients connected to the unfigured scope. Which of the following address pools will allow for all clients connected in the domain to have internet? Okay, well, there's 2 things that need to happen, and there is one assumption you're making on this, because there's a few different address ranges, and what it amounts to is, and by the way, can you all see my screen here? I've got a PDF up on it right now with a diagram. I forgot to ask that question.
Yeah, we see it.
All righty, okay, good. Okay, so we have all these different roles here. The question being, which address pools will allow for clients connected in the domain to have internet? Well, right now, okay, so we've got different address ranges. We've got 10.00.1 to 58, 172.116, 0.1 to 58, 192.168.1.1 to 58, 100, and then we got a bunch of 100 addresses. All right, well, a couple of things that we have to keep in mind, all right? First of all, of those 4 subnets I just mentioned, the only one that's actually in the realm would be this one here, the 192.168.1.2, right? So that would be the range that you would need to use, assuming everything else is correct. Funny thing about this question is the bigger issue isn't so much that. If you're so James, to answer your question, if you're trying to configure it to get it to work, I would say it's answer C, the 192.168, simply because you've already got one of those subnets in here, all right? The bigger issue is that here's what I don't see. I don't see a router that's going to get you over to this address so that this address can access the modem here. Okay, so it says that the first configured with a dynamic address of 192.168.0.5. Okay, so let me give you all a little dose of reality on this one. All right, in order for your devices to be able to get internet access through here, this has to be able to talk to the modem, and if the dynamic address on that modem, let's see, the server is configured with 2 NICs, with the first configured with a dynamic address of 162, obtained from a router providing internet services. Okay, well, if it's obtained from a router, okay, here's what you got going. This is actually what I call a really big problem, okay? Seriously. If you're getting a dynamic address from the modem, what's the modem running? I'm taking this way beyond the test question, by the way. The answer to the test question is C. All right, that's not the problem. But if you're talking, if you're trying to configure something like this in real life, I can tell you right away why it's not working. Oh, no problem. All right, so let me explain a couple of things here, and you all tell me if this makes sense. Okay, if this NIC, right here, is getting a dynamic address from this modem. What's this modem running?
Jason, when you say what's it running, do you mean, is it a DHCP server?
Bingo. Okay, you just nailed it. All right, listen, follow the lead here. This is running DHC. If this is getting, I wish I could draw on this right now, but if this is getting a dynamic address, this is running DHCP. Now, what's one of the first rules of running DHCP on the network? You don't have two DHCP sources. Okay? So my point to you is simply that if you've got DHCP running here and here, you have what I like to call a problem. I've seen this before, by the way, in businesses and stuff. This happens. What happens is, okay, business is small, right? So they get all the machines connected here. This is running DHCP. This is a modem that has routing capability, which is of course common in home and business. And then what do? They send up a Windows server. They send up DHCP. Well, now you got two sources for DHCP. Worse off, here's what I'm noticing. Okay, and look, I don't know if this diagram is supposed to be complete. Okay, but here's the other problem. You got two different subnets. How are they to talk to each other?
Would a route add command work there, Jason?
If you've got routing services set up on your server, it should, yes. But it doesn't solve the problem of you're having two different DHCP sources. Okay, so yeah, I don't see a level 3 switch in the diagram. Now, like I said, if you enable the routing service on the Windows server, then yes, that should solve it. Okay, but you still need to turn DHCP off on this modem, and it's not considered a good practice for a NIC to have a dynamic address in the first place. Not on a Windows server. Those ought to really be static. Alrighty, so for the test question, to me, it's very cut and dry. It's this subnet here. And if you're going to do this in real life, you also want to make sure if you're going to configure a DHCP scope that you have this address in here as an exception, so it doesn't try to assign 1.2 when 1.2 is already taken by a server. But in reality, in order for this to work, you got to get rid of DHCP on here. This here needs to be a static address.
Well, Jason,
otherwise you're taking a lot of room. Pardon me?
Jason, couldn't you make it a reservation exception with the high-speed cable modem and put in a reservation at the high-speed cable modem for the static NIC on the server?
I would still turn DHCP off on the modem. Yes, you can, but I would still turn DHCP off on the modem. Because if you're going to, listen, if you're using this diagram here, if you're using DHCP on the server, why do you need it on the modem? You don't. So yeah, I'm asking, so to answer your question, yeah, you sure can do that. The only thing it doesn't do there, I mean, it's not a bad idea, it just doesn't solve the problem of having two separate DHCP sources. Rule number whatever in networking is when you have two separate DHCP sources in the same network, you're asking for it. Because if for whatever reason, okay, these are two different subnets, right? So if for whatever reason one of these machines can't access this DHCP server, it's going to look over here. And if it does, well, then you're going to have what should be on the same subnet, not on the same subnet. So short answer is yes, you can, but you still need, in order for this to work well, you should still shut DHCP up over here. That's all I'm saying. For the simple fact that it will eliminate a lot of other potential problems you will have in trying to set up this type of network with this type of diagram.
There is a reason to have two DHCP servers, but that's only when the network is so large and you want to keep it separated, but they would have different pools and who accesses
right,
it.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right. I'm talking specifically for this diagram.
Right, right.
For
if it's small,
diagram,
you wouldn't want it, yeah.
No, for this diagram, for this size, there's no reason to have two DHCP sources. And, you know, the other thing, too, when you're talking a larger network, listen, if you're talking like this, and just to carry the conversation further, this is probably outside the realm of a test question, but so what? We're having a conversation here. Look, if you're setting up a network, let's say you've got to have, oh, I don't know, 1,000 hosts. You still have to make a decision on if you're, the decision you're making is, am I going to put them all in one subnet or not, right? And look, you can get in all the reasons you want for either doing or not doing that, but let's say you're going to have 1,000 users. Let's say you're going to put them in the same subnet for whatever reason. You still would only want one DHCP source, but you would have a couple of DHCP relays set up. So that, you know, somebody in a remote location can go through a relay agent. A relay agent can get out to the DHCP server and obtain an IP address. So when we're setting up networks of that size, we just want to make sure we do not confuse a DHCP relay agent with multiple DHCP servers, which by the way, is something I've seen people do when they're first setting up networks, and you know, it's nobody's fault. I mean, when you're learning, I mean, look, you all are setting for exams. The people who aren't doing so, they kind of learn hand by hand in real life. So they do what they're told. They think it's a one-size-fits-all situation, and they run into a problem once in a while. Fixable. Anyway, but I would say that for this particular test question, C is your answer simply because you've already got the static net configured here, and you want this to be able to talk to the rest of the machines on the network, so your pool should be set up around that. What's funny about that particular question is it has a whole lot of noise for what's really going on. Like, this information here isn't really that relevant for the question. And by the way, those of you taking Microsoft certifications, a little heads up here. One of your best skills on the test is going to be reading. Okay, this is being recorded, so I'm going to put it this way. Reading in the question what is relevant. If we were not recording right now, I might say it another way, but I'll keep this positive. Figuring out what's relevant in the question is a skill in itself. That's why I always emphasize when you get, especially in a Microsoft test, read through the whole question, read all the possible answers, and then you can start to diagram out, figure out, okay, what part of the question is actually relevant to what I'm doing here, and that'll help you out. See, because if you look at this, if you not look at, but I mean, going through the question that James, you sent me, I mean, 2/3 of that question is irrelevant. For what they're asking, 2/3 of that question is irrelevant. So you get rid of that part. There's your subject. So, besides, the other thing is 3 of those 4 answers are all private networks. So if you are doing this in real life, what are you looking for? You're looking for a static IP address somebody already configured. You're going to build your DHCP scope around that. That's basically the premise here. But if you can't get this to work in real life, well, you got a couple of things getting in the way here, specifically that from that. So I would turn DHCP off here. I'd make this a static address on the same subnet as this one, and then you don't have to worry about it. So, okay. James, did that help at all?
Yeah, that's great, Jason. I think the only reason I drew the diagram out was to try to figure out what, you know, it's a little easier for me to look when I see it in a diagram and kind of figure out what's going on rather than, you're right, the majority of that question is redundant. I mean, it doesn't apply. And I found that on a lot of my questions on server here, on the practice test questions, giving you a lot of information that does not even relevant.
Yeah. That's the thing. Microsoft tests, especially MCP level and up, are known for doing that. Even some of the MTA questions will do that to you, but not to the degree of an MCP test. So just be ready for it. You know, listen, it's good real-life practice because any IT support role you're in, and those of you who've been in that role, you know, Tristan, you can back me up on this if you want to. You know, you get information from people on what's broken, half the information is going to be irrelevant.
Sure.
Yeah,
so
one of the things is my computer's broken. Well, how?
Oh, that's right. Either they tell you too much or they don't tell you enough. Yeah. We
Or
go
they
through
give
this
you
in the
so
A+.
Yeah. Or they'll give you so much information and none of it is relevant.
Right. That's something we also go through in the A+ course, you know, how to ask the right questions in troubleshooting. That's part of it. That's why, listen, that's why I said this before in the tutor sessions, but that's why I always tell it, you know, one of the best things you can do when you're taking a test is put yourself in the role of the person that you're getting the cert for. So if you're taking a server test, put yourself in the role of the server administrator. If you're taking an A+ test, put yourself in the role of the technician. Then it's kind of fun, actually. You're actually kind of figuring out the best thing, and I don't know, in some cases, I've, for a minute or two, almost forgotten that I'm actually taking a test. It helps get rid of the angst, the nervousness. So it's just one technique, but anyway. Alrighty, well, that was the one big question I got sent before we all started today. So let me just jot a few notes down here. Part of getting the questions right is cutting through the irrelevant part. Example. Hey, do you mind if I paste this question in here? I don't think anybody minds, right? Here, I'm just going to throw this in here. Yeah. Speaking of computers not working, I don't know what it is. I think my laptop here thinks it's Thanksgiving. Okay, so I'm going to make a note over here. So it's like blah, 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 blah. All right. Did you get a diagram for this question?
No, the diagram that you got is the one that I drew.
Oh, you did the diagram?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, still, being that they're starting with a 192, 168, I mean, it's going to be here.
I guess what fooled me, Jason, was that at first I was getting torn between the private address range of 1000 range and the 172.16 range, and I didn't even think about the subnets being off.
Well, sure. And then there's another thing I want you all to notice on here, okay? All right, I'm going to highlight the relevant part. That's relevant, okay? Because this part is relevant. See, your users need to be able to run an IP address or get an IP address. So if you're trying to do this as a real-life example, well, then you've got work to do to set up DHCP, all right? So the server has a second NIC that's not configured. All right, so it's up to you to configure that. Okay. But here's the other. Okay, so now here's a deception play right here. Watch. I'm gonna put a note right here. I want you to notice this. You see what this says right here? The server has a second NIC that is not configured, but will need to support at least 50 clients. That's here to throw you off. NICs don't support clients. Software does. DHCP does. NIC doesn't care. NIC runs traffic through. The NIC doesn't care how many clients you have on the network, where it's coming from, none of that stuff. So that's a throw you off right there. Gateway's blank. Okay. The other thing here is the preferred DNS server. The server 22 is also running a DNS. Well, all right. So you know we're trying to get this. Here's the other thing. All right. Here's another key. See, I made an assumption that that diagram was also part of the test question. But even though it wasn't, look at this. Choose a range which best that's keeping subnets in mind. Let me give you a clue right here, ladies and gentlemen. If they're only needing to support 50 people, this is a class C, which would also dovetail towards C as an answer. Because Microsoft and CompTIA in questions like these are going to assume that you and I are going to play by the rules and play nicely, and we're not going to be like everybody else who does the 10 dot address in the class C subnet. That we're going to be nice, good little students of subnetting, and if it's a class D, we're going to go with the 192.168 subnet. So there's a couple of reasons why C would be an answer here. But this is also a good lesson for making sure we know how to interpret those questions. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. That whole thing takes a lot of practice. It took me, I started taking these certification tests well over 10 years ago, but it took me a little time to really figure out, oh, okay, they throw a lot of garbage your way, and it's up to us to get through it. So, okay, we got that question down. Okay, this question here, I might have to paraphrase this one. Okay, yeah, that's more of a Tristan question there. Or that's more of a Tristan / Brian question. Okay. On the Aaron, let me just answer your question this way. I like the idea of it as far as like who's going to support it. That I'd have no clue about. So, okay, who's next? Let me ask you all, how's the studying going for whatever you're studying for, all of you? How's anything?
Hello, sir. My name's Claudio Pacheco. I'm getting ready to take my Word exam the 28th.
Cool. Yep.
So I've been doing all the modules, G-metrics training. G-metrics is great, so I'm just pretty much doing it over and over and over until, I can do it without even wasting too much time on it. Trouble I'm having is just, I guess, how they're calling things and getting used to the headings, getting used to the titles, knowing where everything's at. So there's not too much there. What you're showing up here right now, I'm taking notes on because I know eventually I'm going to get here. And it kind of gives me a quick, brief introduction into what's coming on. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Listen, have you taken any of the office tests yet?
When you say have I taken the office test, do you mean going in and sitting in that fixed location and taking the test?
What I'm saying is, have you taken the Word certification test yet, or Excel, or any of those?
Negative.
Or is this your first one?
This is my first one coming up.
No problem. All right. So let me give you a little friendly whatever, and Grace is either going to end up, Grace is either going to end up smiling or cringing at the stuff I'm about to say. So Grace, you can weigh in after this if you want. Okay. All right. So key to success on the office test. I'll give you 3 of them, okay? Key number 1, know the ribbon. Because a lot of your answers are going to be found there, all right? You don't have to memorize everything on the ribbon, but just have an idea of what's there so you know where to start. And for specifically the word test, without giving too much away, don't assume that because it's something you don't use, they're not going to ask you about it. You really want to make sure you go through the objective list line by line. This is for all office tests, okay? So I'm not just talking about Word here. Anybody who might be taking an office test anytime soon, you really want to hug those objectives line by line. That's what we do when we do the courses. That's how we teach the courses now. And there's a reason for it, because any of those objectives are possible test questions. So whatever is an objective, you want to make sure you know how to do it. Now, that being said, okay, a couple of extra tips here. First of all, like on the design tab, if we go through, actually, it's bad. Let's say they go through a style set like this, okay?
That's actually, I was going to stop you right there real quick, but that's actually one of the things when they ask you to put a style set, you know, going through each one of these one by one to look for the one that they're talking about is what takes a lot of time consumption. Also, when they ask you to type in something, I kind of wish they got rid of that, because then you're taking away from what you're actually required to know, and you're wasting time typing in, you know, 10, 15 words. You know, you get what I'm saying?
Sure. Okay, so two things about this. Number one, I've taken all the office tests now, and I hardly remember typing anything, and if it was something, it didn't cut into my time too much. So my point is, it's not something I'd worry about too much if I were you. You might get a practice test question that asks you to type a lot. You're not going to be asked to type too much on the test. So you don't need to worry about that. I mean, you might have to put a few words here or there, but you know, they're not. Listen, they're testing your word knowledge, not your typing skills. Okay? No, I'm serious. That's, you know, that's what they're doing. Okay, so let me take you through a little exercise here. All right. So let's say I've got this text selected. So one of the things that you got to pay attention to is a style versus a style set. Well, if they ask you to choose a style, we're on the Home tab. But if they ask you to choose a style set, that is on the Design tab. Now, on the actual test, it's going to take this much time for you to go through and pick out the correct one. All right? This has taken me, I mean, what, 15 seconds, and I'm still talking to you. All right?
Correct.
You might have to put the drop-down arrow to see all the options there. But that, to me, is not a time-consuming thing. All righty? So my point is, so 3 points I was giving you here. Number one, the ribbon. And attached to the ribbon, just make sure that you know how to navigate through this, so you know what they're doing, you know, for that. All righty? So I just chose the casual option here. Second thing is, know the backstage decently. In other words, if you're looking for something up here, if it's something to configure in the program, you're like, I can't find it on the ribbon. Don't waste all day on the ribbon. Go to the backstage. Because if it's not on the ribbon, it's going to be in one of two places in the backstage. It's either going to be somewhere in this info tab and buried under one of these buttons, okay, or it's going to be in the options. And you're probably going to get a couple questions on options. All right. So before you sit for the test, spend a little time here, just going through to see what's there. Spend a little time in the backstage on this info tab, this info page or pane or page or whatever I should say, and just make sure that you look at the test objectives, and you know, there's like, for example, there's a test objective for checking for issues. I covered it in the course. We have exercises in the project workbook on this one. Make sure you know how to do these. Or at the very least, make sure you know how to get to these. That's the important thing for any office test, is make sure you know where stuff is so you can go get it. All right? So two things so far, the ribbon and the backstage. And here's the third one. It's going to sound kind of pedestrian, but the third one, follow directions. One of the things over time, and there's some studies on this, where people go wayward on office tests is not following directions. Like if they ask you to format one paragraph, they're not asking you to format 3 of them. Or if they ask you to format one heading, they're not asking you to format all headings. See, instinctively, we want to format every heading on a page.
Got
but
it.
if they're only asking
one of the things I've been getting caught on, little minor paying attention to detail, is when they have you you know, type in a footnote or you know, an endnote or something, and you type it in, and you know, endnote requires you to put a period or something at the end, and you don't put that period, the question will count it wrong. Yeah,
they do. Listen, when you go to take the real test, they do make a distinction on what you should type and what not to type. So you want to go through the tutorial at the beginning and make sure you understand, because at this point, I don't remember if it's like bold or italic or something like that. I think it's bold. So the period's bold, you know, maybe if you need to type it. But pay attention when you do the tutorial at the beginning of the test, because they do make the distinction on what you should type and what not to type and those types of things. So once you get that down, you know, and listen, when you go to take the test, you do get something to write on. So whatever you see there, if you're not sure about it, just jot it down. Okay, if it's in bold, I guess I need to type it. You know, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I don't remember this. I don't remember that being a big concern when I took the test either. And just, you know, full disclosure time, I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 office tests this year. In fact, 7 office tests in the last 6 months or so. So I've taken Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Access, and I also took the Word and Excel Expert beta test because G-Metrics asked me to. Yeah. The funniest thing is I actually scored better on the Expert than I did on the regular. It's probably just because I was concentrating harder on the Expert test. Ooh. Anyway, my 3 points of advice for any office exam: know the ribbon, know the back page, and follow directions.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Sure. And then the other big tip outside of that is go line by line through the objectives. Make sure you know how to do those. So Grace, am I still eligible to be a guest on the Monday thing if you ever need me?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All right. I just want to make sure
I have a big smile on my face.
Oh, well, good. Good. Okay. So, good questions there. And you know what? I just saw this in the chat box. Some of what I told you, you can apply to all the exams. Look, I'm going to tell you the one of the most important. This is like a holiday, pre-Christmas or whatever tip. Any exam you take, I cannot stress enough how important it is to make sure you go through the objectives one by one, line by line, and make sure you know them. Make sure you know them. That's the biggest tip I can give you for any time. That's why, listen, over the last year and a half or so, I mean, there was one exception, but over the last year and a half or so, we've really started building our courses to cover the objectives in order. And there's very little variance there. So, okay, any advice on prepping for Net Plus in a week? Do you mean only taking 1 week, or do you mean you've been prepping and you're going to take the test in a week?
Hey, Jason.
Are you talking to me, sir?
I'm talking to James Gregor.
Okay.
Oh, you've been prepping. Okay, so you got about a week left? Yeah, basically, you're in your final week. I got you. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 last week study things. Number 1, make sure you know the objectives well. Number 2, if you haven't done the project workbook already from the Net Plus course, that's going to be a really good resource for you because you're going to get some extra practice there. And number 3, you know, spend some time, even if it's the practice test you've already taken, go through it again. And sometimes with a practice test, you just got to go through and just kind of diagram the questions out. You know, try to figure out what parts of the questions are relevant, what parts aren't. But I'd say the most important thing is, let me put it this way, and I'm not saying anybody needs to study the way I do, but, you know, I'll go through the material, but I start and finish with the objective list. Meaning that when I'm studying for a certification test, the objective list is what I'm looking at first. Then, you know, I'll read my material, do my practices, whatever. But right before I go to take the test, I'm going to go through that objective list one more time to make sure I've got those objectives covered. So I would say in your final week of study, that alone will take you a decent amount of time. I would go through, you know, like, I'll give you an example for Net Plus. You know, there's objectives with command prompts. I'd go through and make sure I know those. There are objectives for different troubleshooting things. I would go through and make sure I know those. So James, the best advice I can give in the final week is just hug the objectives list. Make sure you know those well. And if you have to look up stuff, look up stuff. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, real quick, I second that. Anyone that's here when Jason's not, you pretty much hear me beat the objective horse to death as well. But really, you can't stress it enough. It's really your mapped to what you're going to be tested on. And the better you know that, the more comfortable you'll feel and the better you should do. So, I mean, I definitely second that. The objectives is really the key to avoid getting caught off guard, for one, but also being as prepared as you can. Get as much hands-on as you can, We have some stuff. Jason's worked pretty hard on some labs that are on the student resource page. So you definitely want to go take a look at those. At least go through those at least once. So you can apply some of the stuff that you're learning, because you can only learn so much from listening to lectures and taking practice exams. Some of the stuff you got to get in there to do to feel comfortable. So I would definitely take advantage of any hands-on that you can get. And that starts with the workbook. And I mean, some of those exercises you won't be able to do unless you have the actual hardware, but some of them you can. You can go into your command prompt and practice some of those commands and things like that, and some other activities. And then also the labs on the student resource page, I definitely want to stress those again. They will help. So sorry about that, Jason. Just wanted to cut in real quick.
Oh, no problem. That's, hey, add whatever you want. Okay, so Jason Rosenbeck has a question here. Is there a way to acquire ISOs for VMware? What ISOs? I mean, VMware is free, but I'm guessing you're talking about ISOs for operating systems? Oh, for Linux? Probably just go to the site of the version of Linux you want and just download it.
Yeah, you can get one from.
Yeah, you always have VMware on your 901-on-2 courses, and I'm hitting Linux probably after this course, or not? No, it might be networking. Networking would be good probably, but I wanted to do operating systems or even a server, so when I do get to networking, I can try to practice on my own computer.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Well, all right.
I can download the VMware and VirtualBox because of you, but it's in ISO.
Sure. Okay. So a couple things on that. For networking for Windows Server, you can get a trial version of Windows Server from Microsoft's website, and you can install that on VMware, or you can use Hyper-V. Your choice.
Okay.
When I did the Windows Server courses, I actually did everything on Hyper-V just because, you know, Microsoft. Figured I'd play along.
Gotcha.
But you can get.
I'm on COMP 902 right now, but I'm in the. I'm already doing Cert Master, so I'm getting ready for my test.
Oh, there you go.
So I know when I did Linux back in the past, I actually went to school for a minute. I was in IT for a minute, and we had to use virtual machines for Linux, so we could do the ubot and command shell and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, Linux is easily obtainable. The other thing is, you know what? Let me look up the site here while I've got it here. So if y'all can see it, you'll see my search here. But let's see. Actually, I'm going to do a search over here, and then I'll get you the address. I find this to be a valuable server practice resource, so I'm just going to. I never remember what the website is, so I have been playing this up. Okay, looks like there's some busted right now. Okay, so I'm just going to go big picture here. To get some Windows Server lab practice, do a Google search for TechNet Virtual Lab. You have to have a Microsoft account to do these.
I got one.
But they're free. The only thing is I just went to the site, and the site looked like it was pretty well busted right now. So maybe they're working on it. But yeah, the TechNet Virtual Labs I have found to be a good practice resource for Windows Server stuff related. James, the one you asked the question earlier, if you haven't been to that site, I would go there and look around because they're always adding more labs to it. So not just Windows Server. I mean, I used to use that when I was studying SQL Server, database stuff. So, but it's a good site, and it doesn't cost a thing. So,
thank you.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
This is Eric. I was curious what your thoughts are on the similarities and the differences between Network Plus and Security Plus exams.
Security Plus and Network Plus?
Right, because I'm already noticing a lot of stuff is similar.
Yep, because a lot of the stuff that's covered in Network Plus anything security related is going to carry over to Security Plus. But Security Plus, that's going to be the similarity. Now, the difference with Security Plus is going to get a lot more detail just on a security end. So, like all these things about encryption, cryptographics, that kind of stuff that you just need a very cursory knowledge of in Network Plus, they're going to drill you into more detail on Security Plus.
Right.
Whereas Network Plus goes over physical security to a point, Security Plus has more terms on that. By the way, everyone, Security Plus is getting updated next year, so we're going to be coming out with a new Security Plus course middle of next year.
Okay, thank you.
But that's a ways away. Sure. That's a ways away. All right, what else we got? Hey, by the way, I don't know if you all knew this. I mean, this might be old news to you, but did you all hear about what happened with our friend Tristan a couple weeks ago?
Oh.
Tristan got a recognition from LearnKey as a key contributor for quarterly awards.
Congratulations, Tristan.
Yeah, he and a couple others got awards for their outstanding contributions for LearnKey. Well, Tristan, I'm a little bit biased with Tristan because he's a fellow Raider fan. So, of course, I'm always going to sing his praises. But seriously, no, the work he does around here is just, you know, you can't put a price on it. So, Tristan, I just want to make sure I give you your congrats, and, you know, with honors here. So.
Well, I won't hold that against you, even though it's Chiefs Nation.
Oh, arch nemesis. Thanks for the shout out, Jason. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. But what were you just talking about? The chefs?
Oh, funny,
yeah,
funny. Okay, well, this season so far, this 1-0 against, yeah, okay, Tampa Bay beat us, and we beat you.
I know, we're looking for revenge coming up, don't worry. So.
After we obliterate Denver.
Yeah, we'll see, but we'll see. It should be a good game. So, who else has got questions? We got a few minutes left.
Hey, Tristan, this is Eric again. Did you ever find out any more info about that site last meeting that somebody had mentioned about, I can't remember the name now, Avonset or Avocet or something that was supposed to be some kind of study software? He said he got it for free from the company as a veteran, but I was just curious if anything else came from that.
I have not had a chance to look, no.
Did put up the site, I'm sorry. I did post a link in the forum for sites like that, so I did kind of want to point that out too. If we have a little time towards the end, looks like everyone's running out of questions, so I'll point that out to everyone so everyone knows where to go to post helpful links and sites like that.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
I actually filmed 2 courses in the last 6 days, so I've been buried in that for a little bit of time. All right, anything else before I head out here? Well, hey, listen, all of you, thank you very much for your questions today. Keep everything up with your studies. Sounds like things are going pretty well. And, hey, listen, y'all have a great Thanksgiving, all right?